Hey, Vinyl community, welcome to another Thursday edition of the Four Horsemen Show. I have with me, like always, Chris Prophy from Chris Prophy Musically Obsessed, Gary from Physical Format Rock and Roll, Aaron Mutha Alamere. And the topic of today's show, we are going to be showing 10 favorite albums from our collection. Not necessarily 10 favorites, but we have picked 10 favorites from our albums. And as we go through each of them, we might talk a little bit about why we included that as part of our 10, what that album means to us, and anything else that we want to share about it. We are going to go clockwise from my view. So we're going to start off with our first one. And Chris, you want to show us your first favorite album?
Yeah, and tonight I am all over the place as usual. I've got a lot of different genres here. So let's start off with jazz first. My favorite jazz record, Miles Davis, Bitches Brew. This is the album that got me into jazz. I know Aaron loves jazz. But this, here's the thing with this album. I was listening to a lot of progressive rock like Yes and Gentle Giant, bands like that, Genesis. And I was also listening to a lot of the Grateful Dead. And the Grateful Dead, Jerry Garcia had a lot of long jazz-like solos. When I put this record on, it really didn't sound much different than some of that stuff. It has a progressive element to it. It's definitely jazz. It's definitely rock. I know Miles Davis, when he made this record, he was trying to channel Hendrix. He was trying to channel Sly and the Family Stone. So he was kind of digging into some other types of music to, and to create what is now called fusion. And this is like one of the first fusion records. But what I love about this record is like a progressive rock record, the songs are really long. Like side one is just one song. Side two is just one tune. And, it just kind of gives the band a lot of space to create pretty much. You got Miles on trumpet, you got Wayne Shorter on sax, you've got Chick Corea on here, Dave Holland on bass, John McLaughlin on guitar. So, I mean, a lot of jazz greats on this record. And I would say that for somebody who wasn't traditional jazz, I would say that this is the album they should sort of check out. So I don't know, Aaron, I don't know if you've ever listened to Bitches Brew before.
Never heard it. I do like some fusion though, so I might like that one.
And the music I feel too has a bit of a groove. It's almost like a trance groove. Like it almost puts you into a trance. It's just really, really cool stuff. It's definitely not traditional jazz by any means.
Very cool. Yeah, well, Miles Davis is another artist who went through so many different phases in his, from starting out trying to emulate his bebop idols like Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie, and then moving through his cool jazz phase, and then he started to get into work with Herbie Hancock and then ensemble, and then he moved into, he felt he had to stay contemporary, he had to change with the times. And so, In a Silent Way, which was the album before that one, was kind of a transitional album, and then with Bitches Brew, it's full on, that whole fusion record.
Well, yeah, and I think he wanted to start to rock a little bit. You know what I mean? He wanted to be able to play next to other rock bands and have the music, jazz be sort of talked about in the same sentence as some of these other rock musicians. I think he realized how big rock was.
Mm-hmm.
And jazz, maybe by that point, needed a kick in the ass. So another one of my favorite albums by him is called On the Corner, which he sort of incorporated some electronic type stuff into. That's a cool record too.
Yeah, well, and jazz was the rock and roll of the 40s and 50s. And then obviously as rock and roll gained in popularity, especially in the 60s, the audiences for jazz were dwindling, and it was hard for a lot of jazz artists to find work. And so I think Miles Davis saw either I'm going to change and evolve, or I'm going to go the way of like the Duke Ellingtons and the Louis Armstrongs, who could hardly find work as gifted musicians as they were. I mean, they were struggling to keep their bands together and find, you know, paid gigs and stuff like that. So,
I love the artwork that started to come out around this time too. Just very cool
nothing
stuff.
else you'd seen on a Miles Davis album either, you know, that artwork, and he would have a lot of interesting artful album covers in the 70s as well. But all right, Gary.
Okay, well, it's funny, Chris, that you showed that, because this album is probably my favorite jazz album, and it also has great artwork. And it is the Ramones, Road to
That's a
Ruin.
great jazz record. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, this followed up. You had the Ramones, you had Rocket to Russia, Leave Home, and then you had this, which initially was kind of panned by critics because they felt it was too commercial for the Ramones, because they had a little bit, you know, more melody in here. There's actually a couple of guitar solos on this album, albeit very short, and they were songs that were a little more radio friendly. And so because of that, the Ramones were criticized quite a bit. It's now regarded, you know, pretty highly. Most people, I know that, you know, we're fans of this, and most Ramones fans really like this album, but at first they didn't, because they thought it was kind of a sellout album, which seems funny. But it definitely has songs on here like Don't Come Close that wouldn't have been found, or Needles and Pins, things like that wouldn't have been found on those first few records. But it still has great moments on it, like, you know, I Just Want to Have Something to Do. To me, that's a great song. It's a good rocking song, but it's still fun. One of my favorite Ramones songs, which is, I don't know, it's not a hit and there's really not much to it, but the last song on here is called It's a Long Way Back. And they just go, you know, it's a long way back to Germany. It's a long, and there's really, it doesn't even make sense, but I just love the way it sounds. And it's always been one of my favorite Ramones songs. And this was the first one with Marky Ramone playing drums on this one. Tommy Ramone had retired from playing at the time, but he is a co-producer on this album. And I think I also think it's a step up sound-wise, recording-wise for the Ramones. Not that, I mean, trust me, I love those first three Ramones records, but I just thought this was a good one to show because it's probably my favorite Ramones record. So that's my first pick.
Isn't
Well,
that's my favorite Ramones too. Isn't questioningly on that?
Yeah.
I love that song.
Yeah, so, you know, they've got songs that are basically like ballads, you know,
Yeah.
60s ballads. So,
Well, and I think that album was influenced by John Coltrane's "A Love Supreme" too, if I'm not mistaken.
It was, yeah. Joey Ramone was a huge jazz fan.
Mhm. Hey, Aaron.
all right. So my number 10, and I actually have about 40 of them here, but I'm sticking with 10. And those were ones that almost made it, as long as a bunch of others. But I'm going with Fair Warning, my favorite Van Halen. And this record, every time I hear it, I just pumps me up. It just has so much energy. The guitar is amazing on this. Dave's vocals are just at the top of his game. To me, this is the best Van Halen record. Even though I like all of them, I could have put any of the first four really into this, but this has always been my favorite. You know, just something that opening of Mean Street, it just grabs you, and it's all the way through, out, 1 foot out the door. Amazing, amazing record. I listened to it again on Tuesday, and I was just jamming out. And, you know, when Hear About It Later comes on, and just all the hairs on my arms stick up, and every time I hear that song, and I just love this record. It's you know, I've loved it since the 80s.
yeah, that guitar, he has such a different heavy tone on that record that's not on any of the other there's a little bit of it kind of on Women and Children First, but it's
Little
even more pronounced on that album. I love it. Yeah.
I love that record.
It's
All
awesome.
these records like there are like 10 of my very favorite records, but they're all records that I can throw them on at any time and be happy listening to them. It isn't like I get sick of them, any of these records ever. That's why I pick them. Even though they're not maybe the best by the bands, they're the ones I enjoy the most listening to when I'm jamming out and rocking. And this has always been one of my favorite records. I had to put a Van Halen on there, and that was that's my choice there. So
Good one.
Good choice.
All right. Well, the one I'm going to show, this is one of my favorite alternative new wave synth pop albums of the 1980s. And I love this band a lot. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, one of my favorite bands of all time. I've seen them live a couple of times. Talking about Depeche Mode and Black Celebration. This was a transitional album from kind of their lighter weight synth pop records that they'd put out before. The album before this, Some Great Reward, had their first big radio single, People Are People. It was a big video on MTV at the time. And so this one is a more mature record, definitely one of their darkest records. You know, you got Fly on the Windscreen on here, A Question of Lust, A Question of Time, which is one of the first pop songs written about a pedophile. Stripped, Here Is the House. Just the side two especially is just really dark. But even if you're not a synth pop fan, this is maybe the gateway to get yourself kind of into some of that more new wave synthesizer dominated rock. But yeah, I love this record. And, you know, one of the first Depeche Mode albums that I had, and that kind of really got me into that genre. That one.
What year was that?
That was 1985.
Cool.
You can't go wrong with that album, or Music for the Masses, or Violator. Yeah.
It might have been 1986, actually, now that I think about it. But yeah, but no, yeah, that one, like you say, Music for the Masses was the album that was released right after that.
Some Great Reward.
Yep, that was the album before that. Yeah, I think the records really, their earlier stuff are pretty solid, but that one's definitely a favorite of mine. All right, Chris.
All right, this is where I might start to lose people a little bit, but I love folk music, and I love this band, the Indigo Girls. And I know they are not a huge band in the VC at all, but I just love their music. I love their harmonies. And this is their 1994 album called Swampophilia. And this is where they kind of took folk music and they sort of branched out and incorporated some rock and some Americana and a little bit of country, so a mixture of things. There's just some beautiful music on here. I am being a guitarist. I play the song Mystery off of here on my guitar. It's just a beautiful song. So if you want to hear probably my favorite song on this record, listen to the tune Mystery. But every song on this album is, I'm going to use the term killer, because it is. There are messages in these songs. That's what's great about folk music too, is the message. I mean, you know, Gary was talking about the Ramones before, and I love the Ramones too. But what's the Ramones message? They want to just have a good time, right? But a lot of times with folk music, there's that deeper meaning, and sometimes you just want to put on a record like this. So Indigo Girls, again, I know they're not a popular band, but I've always really dug them, and this is probably my favorite Indigo Girls record, Swampophilia.
That is the one album of the Indigo Girls that I actually own.
Oh, wow, okay.
So
yeah, a lot of people go for the one with Closer to Fine on it because that was their big hit.
right.
If you like more of like a rocking type sound, I would get the album Shaming of the Sun. That's another good one too. But
We'll look for it.
if you like good songwriting, if you like great guitar work, if you like harmonies, beautiful harmonies, meaningful songs, you know, female vocals, you're gonna like the Indigo Girls.
Yeah. And they got a little bit of a almost country feel to them at times too, I think.
Yeah. And this is where they started to get a little bit of harder edge to them. And with, you know, the whole Seattle sound coming in too. So there's a song on here called Touch Me Fall, which is kind of heavy for the Indigo Girls. But this is a cool record. Again, if you like folk music with an edge to it, you dig this.
All right. Awesome. Okay, my number 9 is Defenders of the Faith by Judas Priest. This, of course, came after Screaming for Vengeance, which was a gigantic hit for them. And I love that album, but I like this one more. This album to me is, I feel like there's other Judas Priest albums that have, you know, some better songs on them maybe, but I don't know if there's another one I feel that has like this solid track list, like what this does. Free Will Burning, Jawbreaker, Rock Hard, Ride Free, The Sentinel, Love Bites, Eat Me Alive, Some Heads Are Gonna Roll, Night Comes Down, and Heavy Duty, leading into Defenders of the Faith. I love every song on this album. And like Aaron was saying, you know, I even though this is heavy metal, I can play this one anytime. And I listen to it start to finish. I just think it's an album where there's times it's over the top. You know, it almost hits Spinal Tap territory, but yet it just does it so well. It sounds so good that I don't care. I don't care that there's a song called Eat Me Alive on here. It still sounds great. And I just love the way this album ends. You know, it's got that gigantic drum thing at Heavy Duty, you know. And they just have that guitar, just goes right into it. And then, you know, Rob Halford, he says, so come on, let's tell the world. And they all go, we're all defenders of the faith. And it's like so silly in a way, but when I listen to it, I just, you know, I've got my horns up and I'm rocking out, and it doesn't matter. I hear it and I'm a kid again. So this is my number 9 pick.
I tell you what, that could be my favorite Priest album of the 80s.
Yeah.
I think why that gets overshadowed is, like you said, before it was Screaming for Vengeance.
Yeah.
I think, did Turbo follow that?
Yeah, Turbo came after it. So everybody wants to talk about Turbo because it's more controversial, because, you know, some people hate it, some people love it. So you always have that going on. So it's like it's stuck in between those two. And I like it better than both of those. And yeah, to me, I agree. That's my favorite Priest album of the 80s.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, me too, probably. I have 2 I like probably better than that from the 70s, which are Sin After Sin and Stained Class, but that's right up there too.
Yeah, Stained Class, I mean, definitely, definitely has to be right up here with this. I mean, I love Killing Machine too. I think that's a great album.
Oh yeah.
So
They're all their stuff's great though.
yeah.
Rockarola.
Yeah.
Maybe not that
Sad
one.
Wings. Yeah.
I love Rockarola. I love Rockarola.
I do too.
Yeah.
Sad Wings. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
That's so. But anyway, that's my pick.
All right, nice one. So my number 9. All these are one of my favorite times, so I'll quit saying that. Dangerous Toys debut, and
There you go.
the very first time I heard this, I was addicted, and I bought this. Actually, I think I bought this before the videos were out, even. And just stuff like Bones in the Gutter, those crazy lyrics in that about you know, putting the lady in the cement mixer, and it's just crazy. 10 boots stomping. That dog, we were all wearing leather jackets. It was about us, me and my friends. It was just so cool. I love this album. Queen of the Nile. Every song is so good on it, and it's just got that rock, gritty, southern hard rock. That, I mean, it's, and of course, you got to point out every time the shirt. That guy's wearing the death shirt.
Yeah.
On the back for the Mercury, the drummer, I believe. So, With this album, every time I hear it, it just puts me in a good mood. Me and my friends had this on permanent rotation for months. It just never left the tape deck. And we were just rocking out and singing along to every song. And I still love hearing it every time. It's just an amazing record. One of the best debuts ever.
It definitely had a different vibe to it, you know, than it was just enough to make it a little different than all those other bands at that time, you know, gave them kind of
A little
cool edge.
grittier, a little sleeker, a little bit more edgy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just had a little, like a magic to it. Their other albums were really good, but they didn't quite match that one. That was just a special record.
Hellacious Acres is pretty good though.
Oh, I love Glacier Texas. I love Pissed. Pissed is a great record. I even like the artist formerly known as Angels Toys a lot. A lot of people don't like that, but that's actually got some of their heaviest songs on it. And I like all of them. And Demon Bell, their best song, which was never on an album, was only on the Shocker soundtrack. And that's an amazing song.
Yeah. Great album.
All right. Well, Chris was talking earlier about a jazz record. To me, this is my favorite jazz rock fusion album, if you want to call it that. One of my favorite bands of all time. Steely Dan and Katie Lyde. Love this record. This was the first Steely Dan album that I ever bought. And I just happened to find it in a used record store one time. And I was like, oh, you know, I've heard their stuff on the radio, but I didn't know any of the names of the songs other than I knew Deacon Blues, but that was kind of about it. And so I really went, it was a blind buy for me. And I just fell in love with it. It's got the best elements of jazz, best elements of rock. Walter Becker and Donald Fagen are such clever and brilliant songwriters, and they've got a great cast of musicians. They got Michael McDonald on background vocals here. They've just got, this is the first album where they stopped pretending that they were actually a band, and it was more Walter Becker and Donald Fagen and a bunch of studio musicians for hire. You got Rick Derringer is on here on guitar. Kraken, who played on John Lennon's Double Fantasy record, and he also played on Paul McCartney's Ram album. Michael O'Marion is on keyboards. Just so many. I mean, you got Picaro on drums. Hal Blaine plays drums on some of these songs. I mean, the personnel on this record is like a who's who of 70s and 60s session musicians. Just a fantastic ensemble that they put together for this record. And this is as good as it gets for me for Steely Dan. Anybody who wants to get into Steely Dan, I would recommend this one. You got Black Friday on here. Dead in that New York City No More is fantastic. Chain Lightning is great. But just a solid album. And my favorite Steely Dan album, hands down.
I really love Steely Dan. I haven't listened to them in a long time. I wanted to say too, because I got to throw SST in here. The Minutemen cover the song Dr. Wu off of that album.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great song.
Yeah.
Dr. Wu, good song too.
Yeah.
Is that the album with Chevy Chase on it?
What'd you say?
Is that the album with Chevy Chase playing drums?
Oh, no. I'm not sure what
He always
you're
joked that
talking
he
about. Oh, okay.
Yeah. He was the drummer for Steely Dan. He said that a few times.
Oh, nice. All right. Now we're on to number 8.
Okay. This is where I get cool again.
Well, you got a
Now
leather
remember-
Duchess shirt. Always cool.
Remember, kids, I got a Leather Duchess t-shirt on. Remember, kids, if you're keeping score, the last album I just showed was the Indigo Girls. So now I'm going to show Metallica, Ride the Lightning. Yes, I'm cool again. This is my favorite Metallica record. I remember the day I bought it. I remember the day I looked on the back cover and I saw Cliff Burton, and it's hard to see from here, but his skin looks like he's a corpse.
Yeah.
Just it's scary as hell. And I remember the first time I ever heard the song Fight Fire with Fire. Yep. It scared the shit out of me.
There we go.
It starts with this pretty little intro. And then it breaks into Fight Fire with Fire has probably got to be the heaviest Metallica song. It just breaks into this riff. And, you know, the lyrics are, "We all shall die," with Hetfield singing that. And, I mean, this has Ride the Lightning, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Fade to Black, Trapped Under Ice, yeah, Escape, Escaping Death, and The Call of Cthulhu. 8 minutes of just metal instrumental. I mean, the hype sticker on here, JC, says the #1 thrash metal of all time by Decibel Magazine. Now, I don't know. I don't know if I trust Decibel Magazine, but I would probably say it's definitely up there for #1 thrash album.
It's right up there.
So Ride the Lightning. Does that make up for my Indigo Girls pick?
I think you just gained any subscribers you lost with the Indigo
Yeah.
Girl.
Yeah, that's also my favorite Metallica, very closely with another one. There's two of them that are like neck and neck for me, and that's definitely one.
Yeah.
I like the deep track a lot too, like Escape and Trapped Under.
Oh, Trapped Under Ice is great. Yeah. I mean, this and Master of Puppets that's really, I mean, if I had to pick 2 Metallica records that I could only listen to, those would be the 2.
Mine would be that and Kill 'Em All, but it has to have Am I Evil and Blitzkrieg, that version of Kill 'Em All.
Yeah, I'm kind of tired of Am I Evil? I know that's probably sacrilegious to say, but I don't know. I think I've heard it so many times. Actually, I'd rather listen to Diamond Head sing it.
I saw him do a lot.
I just lost a few more subscribers.
No, Diamond Head's great. So
I love Diamond Head. Yeah.
That's an awesome pick. I love that album. So for my number 8, now this will probably be, a lot of people won't think this is cool either, but I don't care. So I've got Album by Joan Jett. This was the follow-up to her big I Love Rock and Roll album, but I like this one better. It doesn't have really any big hits per se on it, but she had a single on it called Fake Friends, which I've always loved that song. I think that's a great song. And I just think this album, I love that cover too. Jumping up in the air, you know, she's holding her guitar. And that's just, to me, that's just Joan Jett at this time. Just very simple rock and roll. You know, it's like she took punk rock and mixed it with bubblegum rock. And that's kind of like what Joan Jett is. Some of my favorite Joan Jett songs are on here, like Handyman and 100 Feet Away. She does a killer version of Starfucker by the Rolling Stones, which interestingly enough, it was when I originally bought this on cassette, and they didn't even have that song listed on there on the cassette, but you would play it, and at the end of side 2, all of a sudden here's this song coming on there, and you're like, because at that time I didn't even know the Rolling Stones had that song. I'd never even heard it before. So I'm just thinking, you know, oh, this is a Joan Jett song. And I'm listening to the lyrics and I'm going, you know, is she saying Starfucker over and over and over again? And so that was, you know, at that time, hearing a woman sing like that, you know, who was a major artist was kind of a big deal. This would be before like Courtney Love, you know, or something like that. So it's a pretty raw album. And it just, the fact that that's the name of it, just called Album. I think it's kind of like, I'm going to get as basic, back to the bones as I can. Bare to the bones, I mean. And that's what this album is. And I've loved it since it came out. Love it now. Still my favorite Joan Jett album. So that's my number 8.
I really like Joan Jett. That's the only one of her early records I don't have. I need to get that one.
Oh, really? Yeah, you'd like this one then. Yeah, for sure.
Was Starfucker on Goat Head Soup?
Yeah, it's called Star, but yeah, it's on Goat's Head Soup.
Yeah, Star is, but yeah, that they don't say Star in the song. So.
All
All
right.
right. My number 8 is one of my favorite albums of the early 70s. One of my favorite albums of all time, of course. Like I always say, Deep Purple in rock.
Oh, there you
It's just
go.
an amazing record. And I was torn between this and Fireball because I like them almost the same. But this is just, I like it just a little bit more because of Child in Time and the amazingness of that song and Fly the Rat. And, you know, and the intro that's on Speed King is so killer. And I was never used to hearing that till I got this on vinyl because my other vinyl copy just goes right into the Good Golly, said Little Miss Molly, you know, all that. But there's a really killer intro on this. It blows me away every time. It's so killer. And, you know, just every song, Bloodsucker, it's all just an amazing, hard loving man. This album so much. And I just love it. It's one of the best metal records ever. I don't care what anyone says, this is a metal record. And it's one of my, and it always will be. And the drumming is amazing, the guitar, everything. Ian Gillan, I mean, John Lord, one is amazing on this. Ian Pace's drumming blows me away. And one of the most iconic albums ever. And that's why I picked it.
Yeah, if people question if Deep Purple were one of the forefathers of metal, they got to listen to that record.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Every song is just in your face.
Child in Time.
And that's just an amazing, epic song.
Yeah. Isn't Child in Time on that?
Yeah.
That's
and you know, that's
Deep
like
Purple.
the original Stairway to Heaven. It came out before Stairway to Heaven. It's like the big, epic, long metal where it's kind of mellow and heavy, and it kind of paved the way for all those. And I think this is the start of progressive music. There's some progressive stuff in there. There's just the in-your-face metal. It's got the galloping guitar time and hard loving man. It's just all the songs are just so catchy and memorable. Even like Bloodsuckers is killer. I love it.
And whoever knew that a Hammond B3 organ could be heavy?
Oh, I know.
Right?
Like the way John Lord plays it, he's like, I don't know how the hell he does it, man, but it's freaking heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, them and Uriah Heep, and they really know how to use an organ in hard rock like that.
Iron
It's
Butterfly too.
crazy. Oh, well, yeah, I don't know enough about them. I can't really say a whole lot. So.
They kind of all started with the Animals and the Doors, and then that was the next progression, I think.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah, Deep Purple and Uriah Heep took it to a heavier thing to where, like, you know, when you hear that organ in their kind of like Chris is saying, I mean, it sounds like another guitar or
Yeah,
something. It just gives it this big fat sound.
Yeah.
It's
And I'll
just
put this
awesome.
up against the Sabbath record, any Zeppelin record for heaviness any day. This is just mind blowing how ahead of its time this was in 1970.
I love it.
And I agree with you. I go back and forth between that and Fireball.
They're both equally excellent.
But Fireball has Anyone's Daughter on it, which I love.
Oh, I love that song.
Yeah.
I know some people hate that song,
I
but
love it.
it's very favorite. It made my top 10 Deep Purple list. So
Yeah.
song list.
That's-
I love it. That sounds kind of weird, but
All right. Well, my next pick is going to be what I consider to be a rock and roll comedy record. It was released in 1967. And keep in mind, this was the year that you had masterpieces like Sgt. Pepper's. You had Rolling Stones coming out with a psychedelic. There's Majesty's Request. The Doors released a couple of psychedelic albums. Like everybody was coming out with a psychedelic. And then you have The Who come out with what is all intents and purposes a parody album called The Who Sell Out. And this is really one of the funniest rock and roll records that you're ever liable to listen to. It extends right to the album cover artwork, which is, you know, kind of like aping some of the magazine advertisements that you would see in the 60s. Each member of The Who is hawking a different product here. But it's funny because there's a song called Heinz Baked Beans. And basically, if you've never heard this album before, basically what it was meant to do is to replicate a pirate radio station broadcast from the mid-60s. So you have a song, and then in between the song, there are these radio jingles that the Who made up, and some of them are actual products. Some of them are just kind of made up products that the Who composed these jingles for. So you've got a song, and then you've got a radio jingle that the Who recorded. And then you've got a song, like one of the songs is actually what I feel like the strongest song melody wise is actually a song about deodorant. It's called Odorono. The lyrics are hilarious because it's about this starlet and she's trying to make a name for herself on Broadway, and she gets a face-to-face meeting with this big time producer, but he's turned away because she has body odor and her deodorant failed her. And like it's the whole song is about, deodorant. And then you Mary Ann and the Shaky Hand, which is the first rock and roll record about a hand job. You got I Can See for Miles on here, which is one of the Who's, greatest singles as far as I'm concerned. You've got a mini rock opera in Rael, which is on side 2. You got some great John Entwistle songs on here, Silas Stingy. It's just a fun record, and I never get tired of it. And the jingles are funny. This particular version, I've got the original version, but then this is a 2-disc version, which has songs and jingles that were left off the original album. Coca-Cola and Jaguar. I mean, they wrote a ton of jingles on here, but it's just a fun record. It's funny. Pete Townsend has a great sense of humor. The whole band is really got a great sense of humor, and never is it more on display than this record. It's so much fun to listen to, and they're having a great time with it. They're having a great fun poking fun at themselves and also at the advertisement industry, rock and roll, in general, and just a whole host of subject matter. So, not my favorite Who album, but it's definitely in the conversation.
No, but it just shows some of the genius of Pete Townsend. And like you said, that early on already, being that sarcastic about advertising, about rock and roll in general, and the way he felt that things were going. And also, like you touched on, I think you said, I Can See for Miles is like one of their best singles ever. I mean, Jesus, that song is so good. I love everything about that song. Kind of like, Aaron was talking about everybody in Deep Purple, how well they played. I mean, everything about that song is just fantastic, man. I mean, just from top to bottom, that's a tremendous song.
Yeah, and the whole thing, Keith Moon he's just doing drum fills. There's not like any steady beat that he's holding down. It's all these fantastic Keith Moon drum fills that he does throughout the entire song. And it's got such a sinister lyric. About a controlling, dominant partner who is like, you'll never get away from me. Wherever you are, I'll find you. I can see what you're up to. A great single, a great song off a great album.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have the 2 CD version of that with all the extra stuff on it.
Yeah, they got the mono mix of it, which is got some differences there too, but yeah.
I have to listen to now. Tonight I want to listen to Steely Dan, and I want to listen to the Who.
Sure. Again, yeah.
Well, hopefully Aaron and I can impress you with something that you'll also want to listen to.
Well, Deep Purple and Rock was pretty darn good, and that Pat Benatar album, I've actually never heard that record before.
Well, it was Joan Jett, but
Joan Jett, I mean. I get the two of them. I get the two of them confused all the time. Pat Benatar, Joan Jett,
Debbie Harry, they're all the same.
Lita Ford.
Yeah, whoever.
All right. Well, I was going to show Love Gun, but it didn't fit into my top 10. I was going to show. Somewhere in Time. That's a killer record. I was going to show Houses of the Holy, but I won't show those. I'm going to go with Moody Blues, Question of Balance. And I've shown this record before. This is my favorite Moody Blues record. The Moody Blues are another band. I don't know. Is it cool to be a Moody Blues fan? Probably not. I really don't give a shit, though. I love the Moody Blues. Justin Hayward has the voice of an angel. The songwriting is phenomenal. This is one of the first progressive rock bands. They incorporated a lot of classical music in their songs. Every member sings, of course, every member plays instruments. There's spoken word, there's folk, there's country, there's rock, there's psychedelic. There's a little bit of everything. And their cover art, again, is amazing. And this has probably my favorite Moody Blues tune. The first song is called Question. And it's a great song. But everything on here is great. I even like the deep cuts like Minstrel Song and Melancholy Man and Dawning of the Day, or Dawning is the Day. Yeah, Moody Blues. I'm trying to think, what's the album with, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Nights in White Satin on it.
Days of Future Past.
Yeah, a lot of times people go with that album as their favorite, or I don't know. Like, I also like On the Threshold of a Dream as well. I almost showed that record too.
And The Tide Rushes In is a great ballad on here.
Oh, it's awesome.
Song is great. Melancholy Man.
I love Melancholy Man.
Mellotron on there is great.
Now I have to listen to this record. Oh, Every Good Boy Deserves Favor. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. Tomorrow's Moody Blues Friday. Yes, Children's Children. Seven Sojourn. Yes.
Gary, show your Moody Blues.
I don't have any.
Long Distance Voyager, man. Oh, so Aaron, you like the Moody Blues too?
Oh yeah, they're great.
Oh man, even their later stuff is really good too. The '90s stuff that they came out.
Yeah.
But man, I need to listen to the Moody Blues.
What year was this? Oh, this is the 80s.
All right,
This
Gary,
is-
you got to show me something I want to listen to here, Gary. Well, actually, no. Okay, let's go back. Gary, his first record, it was a jazz record. He showed us the Ramones.
There
And
you go.
favorite,
Come on.
that's my favorite Ramones record.
And then he showed the Joan Benatar.
Yeah, and Lita Benatar.
I showed the
Jeff?
I had the Judas Maiden. That was a good
Oh
one.
yeah, Defenders of the Faith. I got to listen to that. This is the thing. We're all showing great albums.
Yeah, they are. There's a lot of great albums here, obviously. Luckily for my next, what are we at? 7, 6? Where
7.
are we at? Yeah, I lost my list.
Well, I just showed 4 albums for him.
Okay. Well, this would Jeff was kind enough to wear this shirt. Black Sabbath Volume 4. There's several Black Sabbath albums I could have picked, but today I'm picking this one just because I'm thinking of, I love the way this album starts out with that mournful sounding guitar. I can't do it, but anyway, it does that, and then it goes into into that Wheels of Confusion, and that's just an awesome 8-minute long freaking song. That goes on. This is stoner rock here, as they like to say, and it changes at about 5 minutes. It goes into that, whatever that odd sound effect he has on his guitar. Meanwhile, Tony Iommi is overdubbing on it, playing this, some of his best soloing, I think, in my mind, is on that particular song. I love it. Ends with Under the Sun, which is super heavy. But in the meantime, it's got probably what I think is got to be one of their catchiest riffs with Supernaut. God, every time I hear that's an actual song that, I'm kind of like a kid with that song. Like when you were a kid, you play a song, you're like, Jesus, I'm playing that one again.
Mhm.
That's the way I am. Sometimes I'll get midway through that song and I'm like, nah, I'm starting it over. I want to hear that. And then his drums, the way they come in. I can't get enough of that riff. I love that song so much. And this album is just a badass album. And I love that cover too, man. I've got that shirt also of it because I love this. So this is my next pick, Black Sabbath Volume 4.
Now I need to listen to that album, Gary. Well, and
This is
I'm
gonna
gonna
take
say
off work
too,
tomorrow just to listen to all the music we talked about today.
you're right
Yeah.
though, Gary. Under the Sun is probably one of their heaviest songs.
Yeah, it is heavy.
I have that shirt too, but I have it with a dog on it. It's my local record store. They printed a shirt with a dog as the head. It's pretty cool.
Oh, that's kind of adorable.
Yeah.
Well, and Tony Iommi could just pull one of those riffs seemingly out of thin air, just get you, like, get the hair on your arms standing up, because it was just so melodic and so catchy and so just fantastic. You're like, damn, how does he do it? Like,
I know.
and time and time again. It just seems so effortlessly. And sometimes there's several riffs in the same song where you're just like that is amazing. And he doesn't get enough credit for it, I feel. Everybody, I don't know. Everybody, when I was, growing up was like, oh, Jimmy Page and Richie Blackmore and Eddie Van Halen and, Tony Iommi was always getting left out of that conversation. But he's such a brilliant songwriter and a brilliant composer and just a great, come up with the most amazing and memorable riffs.
Oh, yeah. Well, one of the great things about the grunge movement was you had like Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, who obviously had a Black Sabbath influence. And I think it kind of brought Black Sabbath back to the forefront a little more. And you're right, Tony Iommi did start getting more credit that he should have gotten before. And, they're kind of like, oh, yeah, he really did come up with all these great riffs. And, you listen to some of the Soundgarden songs, they sound just like a Black Sabbath song, except they've got Chris Cornell singing instead of Ozzy. And, the influence on these albums definitely carried over.
Yeah.
Well, plus that has Changes on it, which could have been the first power ballad.
Yeah. Good point. I forgot to mention that. Yeah.
Great album.
Great choice, Gary.
Thank you.
So I'm going from there to a better singer. Kind of related though.
Better singer.
Ivor. One of the best. I kind of quit saying that. But this album from front to back just blows me away every time I hear it still. Stand up and shout. And I love Vinny Appice's drumming on this. It's so good.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite drumming albums. This one is. And you don't think of Dio's drumming, but yeah. And this might be Ronnie James Dio's best moment. And that's saying something because he had some great Rainbow records, some great Sabbath records, but this might be my favorite thing he ever did. Just all the way through, Invisible and Don't Talk to Strangers, and, Straight Through the Heart, Shame on the Night, every song, Rainbow in the Dark, it's just the title song. One of the best metal records of all time.
Well, and that album cover artwork too. That album cover artwork is iconic, and I believe that's one of those pedophile priests, that he's like thrashing and
It was before its time.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Well,
know
it was
about
kind of foreshadowing, but yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course, you flip the logo upside down.
Oh yeah, I remember
Oh,
that.
yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
What's funny is I didn't realize that for quite a long time until somebody pointed that out to me. They're like, well, it says devil. And I'm like, what?
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you got to stretch it a bit. It's there.
Yeah. It's a stretch, but
Yeah, that's cool.
It's still
It's
cool.
actually, yeah. It says Dio both ways too, though.
I wonder what his fascination with rainbows was.
I don't know. It's just
they're mystical.
Yeah.
Maybe. Like a
So,
rainbow in the dark.
He was a
That's
big
such a
Wizard of
good
Oz
song.
fan.
that song a million times. I never get sick of it. Rainbow in the Dark. And it's an overplayed song, but I never get sick of it.
I agree.
Dude,
That
it's a great song.
I was thinking that when Chris was singing it. It's like every time I hear that vocal, like a rainbow in the dark.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, even though it is overplayed, it's like I do not get tired of that song. Yeah.
And how cool is it Like when Rainbow played live, they had a big, huge rainbow that lit up. That's freaking awesome. Yeah.
I do love his Rainbow
So
Red.
anyways, it was like nobody said anything. I'm like, dude, they had a big rainbow that like lit up. You guys are like, yeah, okay.
I've got
And they
a
crashing through it.
I've got a T-shirt that I bought when I went and seen Graham Bonnet and Joe Lynn Turner, and it says "Voices of Rainbow," and so and it's got this big rainbow on the front of it, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't exactly the coolest shirt for me to wear, but I still wear it sometimes. I don't care.
All right. Well,
Dead air.
we're gonna move on from rainbows now. This is one of the first alternative albums that I ever got into. Again, one of my favorite bands that I've always loved since I was in high school. And this is their debut album. They had an EP that was released before this record, but this is their actual first album. I'm not talking about Rat. I'm talking about REM.
Nice.
Love this record. Even today, this is probably my favorite REM record. You got Radio Free Europe, which was kind of the first big hit, I guess you could say. Although it really qualifies as a hit, but Perfect Circle. It's just great, kind of acoustic folk rock a little bit. You definitely hear like kind of the jangly guitars that remind you of like the Byrds or the Beatles, If I Needed Someone. Michael Stipe, it's very difficult to understand what exactly he's saying because he definitely mumbles his lyrics. Even if you did understand what he was saying, it's kind of hard to make sense of what he's talking about half the time. But it's still a great album. It still works as a pop rock album. And this was albums before they actually kind of broke through with their top selling album Document. But yeah, REM, I just love the shit out of REM and especially that record.
Well, and to show you how good their music is, I mean, my kids love REM, so it's like their music even translates to today's youth. So
yeah, and early in the day, it was kind of like, college radio was the only one that actually gave them any exposure. And that was kind of the cool thing. When I got into REM, it was before they'd actually broken with Document. And so they're very much kind of you had to have heard them through somebody who was very cool, or you had to have heard them on one of the radio stations that was kind of off the dial a little bit. But yeah, it was just one of those bands. It was like, this band is really cool. You turn all your friends on to REM because nobody had ever heard of them, and yet you knew how fantastic they were. But yeah, I've always been a big REM fan, and people forget, how kind of indie and alternative they were in their early days before they kind of got popular thanks to MTV and radio hits that they had. But that's my number 7.
Cool. Actually, I only have the first 2 REM on vinyl, so that's one of them I have.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, we're on to number 6.
all right, well, I got to show a Johnny Cash record, and I got to show my favorite Johnny Cash record. This is Hello, I'm Johnny Cash. And yeah, I've shown this record before. This is I have a old insert here, but this is as I said, this is my favorite Johnny Cash record. I mean, you've got South Wind on here, The Devil to Pay, Because I Love You, which is a duet with June Carter. The let's see here. Oh, I love Route 1, Box 144. He does If I Were a Carpenter on here. He does a Chris Christopherson song on here called To Beat the Devil. I love Wrinkled, Crinkled, Wad a Dollar Bill. I play that on guitar. And, I'm not a very religious person, but I can listen to Johnny Cash sing religious songs because I believe him. And I also like the fact that Johnny Cash could sing a song about killing somebody, and then he could sing a religious song. And this album ends with a tune called Jesus Was a Carpenter. And again, I believe Johnny Cash when he sings it, and I think that that's why I can listen to him. And this whole album is believable. I mean, Johnny Cash I'm a huge Johnny Cash fan, and yeah, this just is my favorite album by him.
Fantastic.
I don't know what else to say. It's just a good album.
Yeah. Good choice. All right. My next pick. I know I talked about this album before at different times, but anyway, anytime I'm going to make a top 10, 20, whatever we're done, I'm probably going to put this Heaven Tonight by Cheap Trick, because I just freaking love this album. And I think it's fantastic. It's anything or everything that you would want from a Cheap Trick album. It's got hard rock to it. It's got pop to it. It's got great melody. Robin Zander sings his ass off on this album. You've got the title track, Heaven Tonight, which is this great, moody, slower, heavy song. High Roller, Top of the World, Surrender, Alvita Zane, On the Radio, You're Taking Me Back. Just great songs. I mean, I just love the way this sounds. And Robin Zander is one of my favorite rock singers, and everything he does on this album to me is just like perfect. It's just the way I feel about it. This is just a 5-star album for me. It's the one that really got me hooked onto Cheap Trick, and just kind of like what we're doing. These are all albums, like Aaron said, that we don't get tired of. I can't tell you how many times I've listened to this record, but as I'm holding it right now, talking about it, I'm like, I want to listen to this record right now because it's that fucking good. And I just think this is one of those albums that I think everybody should own in my mind. And I don't really nothing else I can say about it. It's just a great, fantastic studio album. Heaven Tonight, Cheap Trick.
And now I need to listen to Cheap Trick.
The only one I think I like better than that's their debut, but that's a great record.
Well, their debut is a pretty damn good album too. I give that one the slight edge. I don't know. It's just maybe it's because of when I got it too. I have an attachment to it or something. But yeah, I just love that album.
Right. Nice. So I'm gonna go really mellow here. And this here,
I figured you were lying.
yeah, I have to be lying. This probably is my favorite thrash album of all time, right here. I like it just a little bit better than Metallica, Anthrax, Death Angel, but just barely. But this is the album that got me into thrash. That's probably why. First one I really got me into that genre. And,
Conjuring.
Yeah. Just Wake Up Dead was just so unique, with just the singing and that big instrumental, then the singing at the end. And it just, I'd really never heard anything like that. And the melody and the song Peace Sells, just that bass line and everything, it was so catchy for a thrash band. I wasn't used to that. And it just grabbed me. And, stuff like Good Morning Black Friday, all mellow, then it gets really heavy. Just a perfect record in my opinion. I love this album. And it's the album that got into that all those other bands is because of this.
The video for Wake Up Dead, weren't they like behind like a chain link fence or something like that?
Yeah, I think they were like in an airport hangar, and then they were in a chain link fence with all the people like outside it, and they were playing in there. Yeah, amazing song. But this whole album just blows me away still every time I hear it.
Yeah, it's a great album.
Guitar, amazing. I need to go listen to this.
Yeah, now I need to listen to Pick It Up.
I love that when they do Peace Sells with Who's Buying, and like you said, it's got that bass line, doom, 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 doom. And then when a guitar comes in with that, it's like they're squeezing it. It goes, it's got that really compressed sound, and it's like just so tight. That song is so awesome. That album, that's a great album, man.
You're right though. They took thrash and they kind of gave it a unique spin.
Yeah. And it was the heaviest, fastest stuff, but I also mixed in other stuff with it. So it wasn't just pure fast all the way through. They mixed stuff into it.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate.
I
And when
love
they were
Killing
going,
is my business though too.
yeah, oh, me too. And I love all the records. And it's just, but that one there is just the one that got me into all the other bands. So that's why I picked it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for mine, I'm going to show one of what I consider to be one of the most underrated albums of the 1970s. It's a band that most people, it didn't come onto their radar until like the early 80s, especially now. If anybody's heard of this band, they're familiar with their like early 80s work. But I'm talking about, this is Roxy Music and the album Siren. And this works as a great power pop album, but it's not just, a haphazard collection of songs. This is one of the most solid side ones of any album of the 1970s. You've got Love is the Drug, and then you've got End of the Line. And then there's this transition from End of the Line to the next song, which is Sentimental Fool. And yeah, and if you've heard this album, you know what I'm talking about, but there's like this drone as the last song, as the End of the Line ends, there's this drone, and it's a very methodical, subtle transition into Sentimental Fool. But you've got this drone, and then you've got some like this guitar riff that starts, and then there's like the bass comes in. There's like this ominous keyboard, like this piano thing that comes in, and it's such a cool transition. They could have just had these as separate songs, but it's so great how they put this together. It's almost like Dark Side of the Moon, where it's very purposeful. There's not a break between the songs, but it just builds. And then the song Sentimental Fool kicks in, and it's got like nothing to do with anything that came before. But I just love like those transitions that build in the studio. You've got Brian Ferry, who is a great vocalist. This was the album. Brian Eno was a part of Roxy Music, but he left the album before this. And so they were trying to kind of recover from that. But you still got Phil Manzanera, who does some great guitar work. You got Andy McKay, who's got some oboe and saxophone work on here, but just a great ensemble. Such a cool band, just great melodies, great songs on here. And I first heard this on the radio. They played the whole album from start to finish, and I recorded it on a cassette tape. And I was just blown away. I'd never heard of Roxy Music except for Avalon, More Than This, more radio friendly stuff. But this is a brilliant album. It's got Jerry Hall on the cover, who was a model. She dated Mick Jagger, some other rock stars, but just a fantastic package all the way around.
I don't own any Roxy Music.
This would be the one to start with. If I had to recommend any Roxy Music album, I would definitely recommend Siren.
I'm still trying to find that on vinyl. It's a great record.
It is, yep. All right, what are we on, number 5?
Yep.
Well, I had to show a Black Flag record. And I'm showing my favorite Black Flag record in my head. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've talked about these records so many times. But basically, it's punk music, but Black Flag pushed the envelope. They incorporated some heavy metal. They incorporated some doom type stuff. They incorporated jazz type solos. They incorporated, sort of spoken word stuff. They were all over the place. And this album opens up sort of like with a very muddied production. And it's really hard to hear Henry Rollins' vocals on Paralyzed and The Crazy Girl and Black Love. And then it just keeps building and building. And I feel like it comes to a crescendo at side 1 with the song In My Head. And then side 2 is just just killer with Drinking and Driving, Retired at 21, Society's Cheese, and It's All Up to You. And the CD version had a few bonus tracks on it. This is just cool. It's cool punk music because they're expanding the sound of punk. They're kind of taking it to places where people were like, oh, I didn't realize that is actually still punk music. And I think that that's why Black Flag lost some of their earlier fans from some of their earlier records, because they really branched out and tried different things. But yeah, that's my favorite Black Flag record.
Great.
I think that anytime any band, like, you know, it's kind of like when I mentioned the Ramones earlier. So Black Flag, even REM, you know, it's like when they start to get more popular, when they expand a little bit, you always have that core group of like, I don't like them anymore. You know, I wanted them to stay this small band, never change their sound at all. And I think you always have that. You know, you had a lot of people like that, actually with U2 back in the day, you know, because U2 was kind of a little more of an underground kind of band for a while, like with October and Boy, until they started breaking it bigger. But you always have that. And I think I can totally get that about you saying that about Black Flag, because all those type bands, they always have that, you know.
But you got to think of it too in the band's perspective too, because they're playing the same shit every night, and it's sort of like, they're like, all right, can we play something different? Like, I'm sick of, like, the Ramones are probably like, oh, I'm sick of playing these same 3 chords over and over again. Let's do something different. And Black Flag is like, yeah, you know what? We play so fast all the time. Let's slow it down and do one, like the second side of My War. It's all slow songs. It's all doomy, slow songs. So I think bands just get tired of playing the same thing over and over again. They just want to try different things.
Yeah, well,
Then they get chastised because of it. You know what I mean?
look at Metallica.
Yeah. Lulu.
Yeah. So
Well, and again, say what you want about Lulu, but it's an artistic statement. Like, you might not like it, but it's an artistic statement.
right.
It's sort of like when somebody takes a fucking bucket of blue paint and just throws it on a canvas. Like, it's art. I mean, you might like it, you might not. I mean, I think that's what Lulu is. Lulu is blue paint thrown on a canvas.
Yeah, maybe brown.
Brown, yeah.
I thought it was red paint on that.
Red paint. But you get my drift. Whose turn is it? Mine still, or?
Fine.
Oh, it's Gary's turn.
Okay, my next pick, I've talked about this before, but Strangers in the Night by UFO, just one of my favorite live albums of all time. And this is the band pretty much at the height of their powers. Michael Schenker still in the group at this time. They're touring off of the Lights Out album, and which would be, this is the final time that Michael Schenker's with them until he came back in the 90s for a few albums. But anyway, you know, I've talked so much about it. I guess one of the things I will say that I don't normally go on about is Paul Raymond on this album, who plays rhythm guitar and keyboards. He goes back and forth, just does a wonderful job. The keyboards, the way they're mixed in with this, just sound fantastic. I love it. Phil Mogg sounds so good singing on this. And also the version that they do of Rock Bottom on here, you know, with the long soloing and just everything about that song is probably one of my favorite moments on a live album, is the version of Rock Bottom on here. So I you know, most people are familiar with this album, but if by chance you're not, and you like good late 70s hard rock and you want to hear it done to perfection, then you need to check out this album. Strangers in the Night.
Great record. And that's second favorite Rock Bottom, but it's a great one.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from.
Well, you know what I'm talking about, probably.
Kiss,
Kiss.
Rock Bottom?
That's
Rock
one of my-
Bottom. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
Doo-doo-doo.
But that UFO Rock Bottom is amazing on there. You're right. The soloing is great on that. And it's a
Yeah,
great,
it's just
heavy song.
I love that riff. It's just great. I love Kiss Rock.
I love Steely Dan's Rock Bottom too.
And REM,
REM's Rock Bottom.
REM's Rock Bottom, yes.
I think Depeche Mode did Rock Bottom as well.
Yeah, they did. On
Enjoy the silence, Rock Bottom. Enjoy the silence, Rock Bottom. Black Celebration, Rock Bottom. And I like Depeche Mode, so.
my next record, really the most misunderstood record on my list here. Like
What?
you're gonna start seeing things that I've shown a million times, but this one here is still one of my very favorite albums by this band, and most people don't like it as well. But to me, I think it's one of their heaviest, one of their best records, and they called it a name on purpose because any song could have been a single. Even though some people think it's weak, I think any song could have been a single, and it's Hot in the Shade from Kiss. Seriously, this is probably my most listened to Kiss record that I've ever, any of them. Because when this came out, they were my favorite band, and like the Dangerous Toys, me and my friends put this on repeat on our cassettes, just listen to it over and over. And it's got like a Betrayed and Prisoner of Love, two of the heaviest Gene Simmons songs, along with Boomerang. And Gene Simmons is really good on here. Somewhere Between Heaven and Hell. It's an amazing song. The Street Giveth and the Street Taketh Away. Loves a Slap in the Face. He did a ton, the most he'd done on an album for maybe ever on this. And stuff like King of Hearts is great. Forever, of course, has the best drumming of any ballad, I think, ever. If you listen to the drumming of Forever, it's hard. It's just astounding on that song. And, Hide Your Heart. I remember the first time I heard Hide Your Heart, I was like, wait a second, is this a song from Love Gun? It has that feel where it could have been a 70s Kiss song. I've always thought that about Hide Your Heart. Love it. And I don't care what anyone says, this is one of the best Kiss records ever. And it's one of my very favorites. And hopefully I'll be playing it for people here someday. You Love Me to Hate You. I thought that was an amazing song. I couldn't figure out who was singing it at first. I knew Eric Carr was supposed to be singing on it, and Paul Stanley sings it a little differently. And I really love that song. Has a lot of energy, and just one of my very favorites. Rise to It, very different intro. I mean, that acoustic guitar sound, and then kicking in. And I know a lot of Kiss fans think this is one of their worst. That's one of their best. So.
Well, I will
silence.
say I will say I always considered it one of their worst. But to be fair, I haven't listened to that album for quite a long time. The only format I've ever had it on was cassette. And for whatever reason, it seemed to me like the bass was just not good in the mix of that cassette. I never liked the sound of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, that is one eventually, I'll probably have to go back, re-listen to it. Because like if you would ask me right now, yeah, that would be way down on the bottom of my list. But, maybe I need to listen to it now because I kind of gave up on it at the time. And so it might sound better to me now. I always I like the song Rise to It. That's a good.
But to me, Lick It Up, Hot in the Shade, and Asylum are the three best non-makeup albums. Those three. I like that.
I love Lick It Up and Asylum. Yeah.
Yeah, and that one there, I'm telling you, I was listening to it the other day again, and I was blowing me away.
I'll look at that cover.
That's
awesome.
Well, I'm just I can poke fun at Depeche Mode because I really like Depeche Mode. Yeah. That's the last one.
I won't poke fun at them.
Love Depeche Mode.
As do I, but that's not my next pick. My next pick is my favorite album by this band, and I don't know if it's necessarily love this band necessarily their favorite, but I don't care. I think this for me is just a great album. I love this. Whenever I get sick of road blues, the Changeling to me is just a great album kickoff. I love the groove that they have going on that album. Then you got Love Her Madly. You got a couple of, I mean, this song has just got some of the Doors' best bluesy rockers on here. Been Down So Long, Cars Sits By My Window, Crawling King Snake, The Wasp, Texas Radio and the Big Beat. And then you make tracks, LA Woman and Riders on the Storm. Riders on the Storm and The End, to me, it's like great bookends to the Doors career. As far as like last songs on their, the End obviously closed out the Doors debut album, and then Riders on the Storm closes out their final album. And it's just fantastic. And what a way to go out. Jim Morrison, I know he didn't know this was going to be his final album with them, but it is just, I love this album. I can listen to it over and over again. I never get tired of it. I love every song on here. It's got one of Jim Morrison's most poignant lyrics with, I see the bathroom is clear, from Hyacinth House. It's just fantastic. Love it. And I'm going on record as saying it's my favorite Doors album.
That's a great record.
That's such a good record. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good record. I think my favorite Doors record, though, probably Morrison Hotel. But that's LA Woman is kick-ass too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, that like way with like Beggar's Banquet or Let It Bleed or Morrison Hotel or LA Woman, it's like a coin flip most days, because Morrison Hotel is a great album too.
I think on Morrison Hotel, isn't Peace Frog on there?
Yeah, Peace Frog.
Indian Summer.
Blue. Yeah. Well, that goes into Blue Sunday.
Yeah.
Summer's on there. Yeah. Queen of the Highway.
Is Maggie McGill on there too?
Yeah, Maggie McGill, Ship of Fools.
Yeah, that's a great record. Land Ho.
Yeah, You Make Me Real.
Oh, now I need to listen to the fucking Doors now. all their albums though. Love the Doors.
Riders on the Storm.
Into this house we're born. Riders on the storm.
Into this world we're thrown.
An actor all alone. Riders on the storm. And then like they have the rain and too. It's like, yeah.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Changeling. Yeah, that's a fantastic way to start that thing out. Yeah, that's so like kind of funky and it's just a great kick-ass song. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great driving song. You're driving along. It's like you can't help but accelerate while you're listening to that, because it's got such a great groove going. And
well, what's crazy about that album too is it's like you can tell that Morrison has already done so much damage to himself. His voice is so much different than it was like on their first album. It's so much more ragged. It's like I wonder how many more albums they actually could have made anyway. But it's like it works on this album. And I don't know, I think when I first heard it, like as a kid, when I was first starting to buy some Doors records, I didn't like that album as well, because at first, I don't know, there's something about it. I thought, man, it almost, he can't sing half the time or something. And now, like you said, it's probably my favorite Doors album. It's just a fantastic record, and I love the way he sounds on this record, even though he does sound like he's ready to fall off a cliff at any moment.
Yeah, I think the only song where he sounds like the Jim Morrison from his first couple records is L'America. He's got that, the old Jim Morrison crooning voice on it. But every other song on there, he's got like that. He wanted that hard and grizzly blue voice on it. And I think it works well for the material. I can't imagine him using the voice that he used on,
Love Street.
the Crystal Ship for a song like, Been Down So Long or Lover Madly. He had to kind of toughen up his voice for this
The
album.
crawling king snake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
She lives on Love Street. Lingers long on Love Street.
Is that your pick, Chris?
I love that song, man. I love that song.
Me too.
All right. Well,
The house and garden.
Chris already showed 4 Depeche Mode albums, so I think.
No, I'm just gonna listen. My next one, I'm just gonna hold one up. I'm not even gonna talk about it because I beat this one to death. Monkeys present. Sorry.
Let's hear it for the Monkeys. Damn it.
Yeah, I've talked about it enough. That's all you get.
You know what?
My 4 Depeche Mode record.
No, you know what? I think I'm going to follow suit because for my pick, I have talked about this album to death too, and Jeff has. And it's Let It Bleed by the Rolling Stones. What can you say? This is just a fantastic album, man. It's Stones at their best. I always love this album. Stones, Let It Bleed. That's my number 3 pick.
Maybe my favorite by them. It's right up there. So I'll go real predictable. You will never guess I'm going to pick this one.
Hey,
Twitter face, stick to your guns. I don't care. I'm the only one of VC that's ever shown this that I know of. So I'm going to keep showing it until someone else does. And it's just one of my favorite records ever. Amazing. From the acoustic ending, rockin' beginning, everything in between, the epic title song. Nobody knows it, so I won't talk about it anymore.
well, you sent that to me.
Amazing guitar, amazing drumming, killer singing, hook after hook in their songs, attitude. It was described as Guns N' Roses mixed with David Lee Roth era Van Halen, kind of what it sounds like. So if you like that, you'd like this. There you go.
It sounds like a hell of a
Stick to your
combination.
guns. Yep.
Pull that out again. You sent that to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm forcing people to listen to my music, Clutch and Sweet FA, and so I don't hear about them so I gotta send it out to people.
Harry
So
Nilsson.
that one's hard. You're the only one I could send it to.
Yeah.
All right. Well, obviously, I can't go, if we're talking about favorite albums, I can't go without talking about this band. And the easy pick would have been to go with Pet Sounds or Smile. I've talked about the Today album, how much I like that record, but I'm going to go with a Beach Boys album from 1968 that many people regard as an excellent Beach Boy album, but not many people who are just kind of, casual fans of the Beach Boys are familiar with. I'm talking about the album Friends. Love this record. It's such a mellow, chill kind of album. It's not overly produced. It's just the Beach Boys being the Beach Boys, but at the tail end of the 60s, there's not any surf songs or car songs, obviously, but it's just a great album. It's a mellow album. You've got Friends, the title track on here, which has got some great harmony. You got some great Dennis Wilson track on here, Little Bird. Busy Doing Nothing is a bossa nova track that Brian Wilson wrote with some very kind of naive, just innocent lyrics about what he's been going about his day doing. Passing By is just kind of a, lilting instrumental. Diamond Head is a great instrumental on here. But it's just a great underrated Beach Boys album. When you're sick of hearing the Beach Boys early 60s hits and their greatest hits and whatever, you just want to put an album on and just hear some great harmonies. It's great great production, great songwriting on here. I can't think of a better album than Friends. This was 1968. Nobody was buying Beach Boys albums at this point in their career. They kind of fallen on their face after the whole Smile debacle, and then Smiley Smile, and then Wild Honey didn't sell any records. This was the lowest selling Beach Boys album of their career to date because nobody wanted to know, nobody cared about them anymore. Everybody had moved on. The Beach Boys were seen as passe. And in the midst of all that, they were still putting out what I feel is one of their best albums. And I stand by this record, and I think it's just fantastic.
So
Yeah,
I love that
I love
album
the later.
cover too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love the later Beach Boys.
Yeah, that's a shame. But I mean, you get that. You can totally see how people would feel that way because of the image that they had and that they started kind of like, right before the Beatles. And it doesn't take much for a band to all of a sudden seem like they're out of step. I mean, even though it's just a matter of a few years, I mean, that happens every decade with some band. I mean, I think when Van Halen came onto the scene, there were, bands all of a sudden like Aerosmith, all of a sudden they seemed a little more old school, or, Ted Nugent was really big and all of a sudden he just went, nobody cared about him. So, I mean, it happens. Happened with the Beach Boys, even though, like you said, unfortunately, they were putting out great music and they were changing, they were adapting more to the times, but nobody gave a shit.
Yeah, they were more popular in Europe than they were in the United States. And they were America's band, and yet they were selling more records overseas than they were selling in their own, home country.
Yeah.
Yeah, but great one to check out.
I'll have to get that one because I have about 15 to 20 Beach Boys records. I really like them, but I don't have that one. I'll have to find that one.
Yeah, yeah.
I have it on CD, the twofer. I think
Yeah,
2020 is on the other one.
Yeah, it's almost like a sister album.
Yeah.
It's a great one.
Well, I'm going totally out of the box for this next one. I don't really show a lot of country on my channel, like from the 90s, but I'm a big time country fan from the 90s. Like I love Travis Tritt, Reba McEntire, Alan Jackson, and this guy, Garth Brooks. And this album, No Fences, is probably my favorite Garth Brooks album. It's got The Thunder Rolls on it. It's got Friends in Low Places. Those are the two tunes that everybody remembers, but it also has Unanswered Prayers, Two of a Kind, Working on a Full House, and just a killer song at the end called Wolves. Now, the thing with Garth Brooks is he got me into country music. He also, I tried to sing like Garth Brooks. So whenever I sing, people are going to hear probably a little bit of Garth Brooks in my voice because I tried to emulate his vocal quality when I sang. And also the guitar playing and the songwriting, I tried to emulate that as well. Garth Brooks gave country a kick in the butt. Garth Brooks, one of his favorite bands is Kiss. And when he designed his stage show, he designed it like Kiss did. He brought lights in and he was running all over the stage and there were props and things like that. So I don't know, like I said, he kind of gave country a kick in the butt when it needed it. And I still go back to this record. And even though this record came out in 1990, it's still really, really good. So there you go. Nobody talks about 90s country on.
Oh, my wife was really into it. So, I mean, I got into a lot of it. I listened to a lot of country in the 90s, actually, because my wife when it came to after the whole, whatever, hair metal phase ended, my wife, she didn't care about any of that rock and roll anymore. She didn't like any of the grunge or any of that stuff. So she kind of turned into just listening to a lot of country. And so I'm in the car with her and I started listening to a lot too. I'm a huge fan of Patty Loveless. I
love Patty Loveless. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen her a few times and she's one of my favorite singers. I just think she's great. So
She's got a great voice. Yeah, I'm a huge Dwight Yoakam fan. I love
Oh, I love Dwight. Yeah.
Mark Chestnut, all those guys, Alan Jackson. So yeah.
All right. Well, my pick ties in with yours, actually. So I got to go with Kiss Alive.
Nice.
You know, I guess I'm being super predictable, but I can't help it. I mean, I love this album. This is, I don't know. I guess it's probably my favorite live album. I don't know. It's hard for me to say, but for right now, I'll say it is. And I realize, I know it's been touched up, yada, yada, yada. I don't give a shit because it sounds great. They took all those songs from the first 3 albums, brought them to life, and there's so many highlights on this album. I grew up with this album, from Parasite to She, to the Rock Bottom that's on here. I mean, I love that too. I love the way you can hear it when they're doing that intro, and then he switches, because he's playing the Les Paul, and all of a sudden you can hear him make that switch there, switching channels, and you could just hear it. All of a sudden it gets louder, and they go into it. It's great. Cold Gin on here. Let Me Go Rock and Roll. It's just Deuce. Deuce opens it up. Sounds fantastic. This is just such a fantastic live album. I don't know. I guess I don't even know why I'm going on about it, because we all know this album. Everybody out there does, but it's just fantastic. Just one of the best rock and roll albums of all time. Kiss Alive.
100,000 years. Can't get better than 100,000 years on that album.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that is great. Yeah, I love the drums on there. That's awesome.
So next up, I'm going Facelift. Changed my life. This album, it was just so unique. When it came out, it was just, everything just turned, a different way. And this is before Nirvana broke big. And this is heavy though. This is heaviest grunge album ever made. It's a heavy metal record, but it's grunge. And the singing and the harmonies on this are amazing. They'll give that's what was so cool about it, was Lane Staley and Jerry Cantrell harmonizing how they did on this. It was just so cool. There was really nothing like it. And it's kind of like they reinvented Black Sabbath. Like it ain't like that. It was like a Sabbathy song, just like groove. And it's one of the best records ever made. We Die Young still is, when I hear that, it just gets me going. And Sea of Sorrow just gives me chills every time still. Bleed the Freak. Sunshine is probably my favorite deep cut. I love the song Sunshine. It's kind of one of the slower, mellower songs on it, but just the vocals on that and how he sings it is just so unique. For back then, it was unique because it's like he take the lines and he draw them way out. It was really cool. It wasn't just like singing the lyrics really fast. I really loved it. So I'm going Facelift, Alice in Chains, number 3.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, those harmonies between the two of them singing were just really, really unique, really different. When that first came out, it was something that as a hard rock fan you could get into. Some of the music was changing where maybe you didn't like it as well, but that was like, oh man, what is this? This is awesome. Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah,
Dirt had a lot of really good harmonies, but that one, the harmonies were just a little different on Facelift. It was just a little bit better. And they were so
copy those harmonies.
Huh?
Everybody started to copy those harmonies.
Yeah, tried to, but no one could sing like Lane Staley though. He was just such a great singer, and it was very unique. They came out with that heavy in your face record, and then the next thing they did was Sap, an all acoustic EP, and then Dirt, a heavy record, and then Jar of Flies, acoustic again. They never stayed in one lane. That was what was so cool about them. They kept switching it up, but still saying who they were, and I really like that about them.
Yeah. R.I.P. Lane Staley. But the album that I'm going to show is from a band that I don't talk a whole lot about, but I love this band and I love this record. This is one of those records I could put this on, listen to it over and over and over, like on repeat. And I'm talking about Rush, and I'm talking about my favorite Rush album. Just love this one. Permanent Waves is, to me, a perfect album. This is their transition from their progressive rock that they had. They just, come up with Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres. And then, they're starting to do more kind of radio friendly songs on here. As a matter of fact, you got The Spirit of Radio as the first track. And then one of my favorite Rush tracks of all time, Free Will, is great. And then Jacob's Ladder. I never hear anybody talk about that track. I love that song. I love just how it's kind of, starts off very soft, and then you get into the middle part of it. You got that great guitar riff, and then, they go off into the solo, and then it kind of quiets down again. You got the keyboard. You know what I'm talking about, that part.
Oh, yeah.
And, kind of picks up again. It's a great fucking awesome song. Entree News is a great track, Different Strings, Natural Science. Love this record, love this band, and always been a fan of this record. This is my favorite. I love a lot of Rush's stuff, but it doesn't get any better than this album for me.
That and Signals. I love Signals too.
That was such, because I was already a big Rush fan by that time. I got into Rush pretty early when I was young, and I just remember going from Hemispheres to Permanent Waves was like such a change, but yet that album was so good. You couldn't help but love it. Yeah, Jacob's Ladder and Natural Science, they still had the progressive sound to it in those, but yet they had all of a sudden these shorter songs, which they'd started doing a little bit too before that. They had Trees on Hemispheres, but they had a different sound. They had a different drum sound on that album, but yet the guitar was there's still a lot of really good Alex Lifeson solos on that album. He plays his ass off. I mean, I remember, I know everybody is constantly talking about Moving Pictures and everything, but I remember as a kid when Moving Pictures came out, I was like everybody else. I loved it, but like everybody was talking about, oh man, this is Rush's best album, and I'm like, what are you talking about? This is a fucking step down from Permanent Waves. I said, I'm not that it's not great. I said, but it's not even as good as Permanent Waves. And everybody's like, what? You don't know what you're talking about. But I stand by that statement today. I said it back then when everybody, was in love with Tom Sawyer, and Limelight and everything. Not that I don't love those songs or that album, but Permanent Waves is just fantastic. Just a brilliant album, man.
Oh, it's so creative. And Geddy Lee changed his singing style too. It wasn't singing that, that like upper register. He like started singing in a lower register. His voice got a little bit lower. But I love, even in Spirit of the Radio, you got that kind of like that reggae, that, kind of.
Yeah, they put that in there. Yeah.
They changed it up and then they go back into it. There's so many just like sections, and it's great songwriting. Alec Lifeson's got some great solos, obviously Neil Peart, a wizard on the drums, but they, moved into a different phase. And it was like, okay, well, we did the progressive rock thing. We're still going to incorporate elements of that. And that's what I love about it. This is not a long album. It's only got like 6 songs on it, but they stretch out, and yet, it's songs that they could play on the radio and get Rush more exposure than maybe they'd ever had before. I mean, you had songs obviously like Closer to the Heart and Fly By Night that you heard on the radio, but now, it's like they're moving into, they're seeing the future. They're incorporating more synthesizers than they had before. But yeah, I love Permanent Waves, and I again, I can listen to it over and over and over again and never get tired of it. I don't care. There's some albums, you know, Aaron and I had talked about before. There's certain albums, I like them a lot, but I don't want to hear them like over and over and over again. That one, I always listen to it and I hear something new or there's something fresh, and it's just a great, great album.
I love it when he goes, thunderheads are rumbling in a distant overture. Yeah, that's just great.
Yeah,
I love that.
great track.
I do have one question for you, Jeff.
Hmm.
I remember a while ago you had a shootout with Led Zeppelin 4 and Huey Lewis 4. Now I was wondering, because you really love that Huey Lewis, which Jacob's Ladder do you actually prefer, the Huey Lewis or the Rush?
You had to ask. Yeah. Damn it. I mean, Huey Lewis, you know, I mean, it's always, you know, it's like Beatles or Stones. It's always going to be Beatles for me. But yeah, I mean, they're so close because, you know, structurally they're similar. But yeah, great. Good question. I admire your moxie.
I just remember you had that ranked higher than Led Zeppelin 4. So
Yeah,
if I remember.
no, but if I'm being honest, I don't want anybody to watch this video and think, oh my God, Jeff is actually, you know, gonna rank Huey. No, obviously, you know, Rush kicks Huey Lewis right out of the water. There's no comparison. Jacob's Ladder
Personally, I like Huey.
of the week. Yeah.
I like Huey Lewis, but come on.
I like
First
Huey.
concert I ever saw. So I have a special bond with Huey.
I hear you.
The album 4 is really good.
It's his third best.
Next pick.
All right, well, I'm going with Sabotage, Black Sabbath. This happens to be the box set. So
He just wants to show his fancy
I love the
box
show.
set. Jesus.
No, well, you know what? I also have a regular pressing of this album as well. But yeah, I do want to show off the box set.
I don't blame him.
Oh, it's heavy.
This is my
Garrett.
favorite John Lennon album.
I have another box set I'm going to show here in a second. No, I've talked about this record before. I mean, System of the Universe is killer. Megalomania is very proggy.
It's my favorite Beach Boys album.
Yeah. The Ritz. Yeah. So, you know, we all know this record. Come on.
It's a great record. Yeah.
Oh, that's heavy.
Oh, that big giant edition of Sabotage. Yeah. It's heavy. Oh, there's so much in it.
Oh, this is my favorite Beatles album. Oh.
This has a triple live album in it.
Oh.
Oh.
There's a video we could do our favorite box sets.
Nobody's watching anymore at this point, so we can just, you know.
Yeah, it's been like 2 hours.
Jesus. All right. Well, once again, I don't know. I feel like mine's been really predictable, but I was kind of really trying to think of, like, you know, some of my top 10 favorite albums. Anyway, we've all beat this one to death too, but I've got Animals by Pink Floyd at number 2.
Never
I think
heard that record.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I know we're all fans of this record.
Yes.
It's just great. It's just a fantastic Pink Floyd album that everything works. So Animals, that's my pick for number 2.
Good choice.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. That's maybe my favorite by them. It's really good. So my number 2.
Yeah.
That's
There
it.
you go. Wow, that's
All right.
a different one.
All right, Jeff, you're number 2.
Everyone knows that
Number
album. So much.
2. I'm gonna go, and this is the reason why. Like, you know, Aaron, I was like, oh, White Album, but I talk about the White Album all the time. Abbey Road's a no-brainer. But one of the reasons you know, Sgt. Pepper, I feel like I've kind of, you know, it used to be at the top of my list, and then feel like every year it slips a little bit farther down on the list. But, I was thinking about it, and, I like Sgt. Pepper a lot. It's the last Beatle album where you feel like there's that collaboration where everybody's got some input. They're all for one, one for all. After this, it sort of started to become about, well, I wanted to get more of his songs. George is trying to get more of his songs in there. Paul's recording some of his stuff by himself in a studio, just to get the songs out there. There was so much stuff on the White Album that it was almost like a free for all. Like, well, John's going to go off and record this song, and at the same time, Paul's in a different studio because there's so many damn songs on that album. But this is the last time. And also, as far as the Beatles' progression and kind of being at the forefront of music, this was kind of the last time that the Beatles were actually ahead of everybody else in terms of, this album. When this album came out, and a lot of people forget how innovative this album was because we've heard it on the radio, I mean, not too many of us were around in 1967 when this came out and could actually experience it in the context of the times where Revolver was the most, recent album. There wasn't any Abbey Road or White Album. And this was such a creative album. This was the Beatles taking things a step farther, still being at the forefront of the rock movement. I mean, it's hard to say the White Album is innovative, except for maybe the track Revolution 9. I mean, a lot of bands had caught up to the Beatles by that point. The stuff that they were putting out on the White Album, great music, but it's not breaking any new ground by any means. I mean, there are bands who did stuff that the Beatles did on the White Album, you could argue better than the styles that the Beatles did. But this was kind of the last time where the Beatles were like, we're paving the way. This is the Beatles showing the way forward in music. After this, everybody had kind of caught up. There were bands who were doing it, they were more proficient. They were trying things that even the Beatles weren't doing. So, I just want to kind of give some props to Sgt. Pepper because after this, it's kind of the Beatles were, they were no longer like, the gap like this anymore, the Beatles and then everybody else. I mean, the Beatles were still writing great songs. They were still putting out great music, but even by Abbey Road, it's not like Abbey Road was like, oh my God, look what the Beatles did. I mean, great music, but it's not anything like groundbreaking or innovative necessarily on that album. But so I like Sgt. Pepper. I certainly like, with a little help from my friends, better than Octopus's Garden, or, you could argue even Don't Pass Me By. But yeah, great album, and that's my pick.
Yeah, those are really good points that you just made about that album. And I it's true, kind of like you said. That does seem to be the last time when they were the, all together type, they were a gang. They started to splinter after that. And that's, they were at the forefront, but then all of a sudden, you're right. Everybody else started catching up. And like you said, some of them doing better. So, yeah, excellent points on that.
Thank you.
But I still think their two best records are the White Album and Abbey Road. You're right, though.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Well, follow the trend here. Gotta pick up the box set. White Album. I'm not even gonna say anything about this. We just did a whole video on this, but Aaron gave me this. Thank you, Aaron. This is heavy too, man. I should be losing weight after picking up all these box sets. I mean, we've all talked about the White Album before. It's awesome. What else you gonna say?
That's why I didn't do a lot on Abbey Road either. So
yeah.
So,
what's kind of cool? What's kind of cool about the box set you just showed? We all have it, and I got mine at Walmart.
Yeah.
I mean, that just kind of shows you an album. Here it is. It just shows you how big the Beatles are still. And the fact that they have this box set that you could get at Walmart that has demos on it. What other bands does Walmart carry a box set of, half of it is demos.
Yeah.
things like that, and a double album to begin with.
Right.
I don't know. That just speaks volumes about the band and that album. That you could find that thing anywhere.
And what's
That's-
amazing about the Beatles is it doesn't matter who you ask, everybody's heard of the Beatles. It doesn't even matter if it's somebody who doesn't even like music, they've heard of the Beatles. So they're just an amazing band. But we already knew that.
Yes. All right. Well, my number one is probably my favorite double studio album of all time, Physical Graffiti
Yes.
by Led Zeppelin. It's got everything. It's got everything that Led Zeppelin was known for on here. It's got hard rock, it's got blues, it's got acoustic numbers, it's got different keyboard instrumentation in here. The singing is excellent. The drumming, of course, is excellent. It's just a fantastic album. It's two studio albums of Led Zeppelin. Of course, it's great. That's kind of how I feel about it. So, number one pick, Physical Graffiti.
I love In My Time of Dying.
Oh yeah,
Just me on that. Like that and the end of the track where John Bonham just beats the shit out of those drums. And you, I mean, like everybody is on fire on that track. So many great moments. You got world music on there with Kashmir. Just everything that's great about Led Zeppelin is represented on that album.
Yeah.
The lighter side of Led Zeppelin, the heavy side of Led Zeppelin, the 50s homage, like Boogie with Stu. You've got so many cool moments on there. It's like an embarrassment of riches.
it is. You got songs like 10 Years Gone, In the Light, just these amazing songs. Then you also have great rockers like the Wonton song, things like that. It's everything you want.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get that on vinyl.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. All right, Aaron.
So you'll never guess who my number one's going to be.
Clutch.
What?
Yep, I got it. This is that's like three of the records are tied for my favorite: Last Tyrant, The Elephant Riders, and Pure Rock Fury. And this Elephant Riders is just so amazing. It's kind of their transition album from their heavier, kind of hardcore beginnings into their space rock, bluesy side, and the lyrics are phenomenal. The instrumentation is phenomenal. They even have a little bit of jazz influence on this one, and a song called instrumental called Cracker Jack. They have a little bit of some horns in it, and it's kind of jazzy. And the song Wishbone, a song that's singing about holidays they don't sing about, like Thanksgiving and St. Patrick's Day. Really cool song. The lyrics are just amazing on this. It's an amazing record. It's a song called The Yeti. Green Buckets, about garbage cans. Just an amazing album. Dragonfly. Even bonus songs on it. And they have 3 different bonus songs depending on what you got. You never knew which one you'd have. And just one of the most amazing records ever made. The Elephant Riders. This is very hard to get on vinyl now. I was lucky I got it when it came out. Because now it's like over $200, I think, for these. It's kind of crazy. They jumped up. But I got it right when it came out, so it wasn't, it was like $30 when I got it. It's just phenomenal album. And I wish you guys could hear it. Maybe someday you will.
Yeah. Hopefully. All right, my album is going to be, I love this band. This might be my second favorite band of all time. Show this band every opportunity that I get. Gary's already showed a record by them, which I love that album too. But for me, I can listen to this album no matter what mood I'm in, particularly if I've taken Vicodin and Ambien and mixed it up with a little wine. Talking about Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here. And I love because it's just, after Dark Side of the Moon, it would have been so easy to just try to do Dark Side of the Moon Mark II, short songs, maybe with a concept, radio friendly stuff on the record, chop it all up. But they went the total opposite direction. They went back to kind of the music that they put together on metal. You got Shine On You Crazy Diamond, parts 1 through 5 on side 1, and then at the end of side 2, you got parts 6 through 9. You got Welcome to the Machine, which is just entirely keyboard based. It's very ominous. You got a song on here that actually is sung by Roy Harper, none of the members of Pink Floyd. Have a Cigar, which is almost like the Money song on this album. You've got Wish You Were Here, which is an iconic Floyd song. You still got all kind of that, like the audio verite elements that Pink Floyd employed, where they try to take you almost like it's a little movie, and they're taking you on a journey, like a Welcome to the Machine at the very end. You know, the door slams shut, and then it's almost like the spaceship takes off, like off into space. Then you flip the record over. You got Have a Cigar, which kind of segues very cleverly into Wish You Were Here by, there's this whoosh, and then you hear this song being played, the end of the Have a Cigar being played on what sounds like a transistor radio, and then the channels being turned, and then you hear the opening guitar lick of Wish You Were Here, and then it's suddenly, you know, a song. I just love those moments for Pink Floyd where they were very thoughtful. Again, they could have just put a bunch of songs on a record and been done with that, but no, like the transitions between the songs, the transition from Wish You Were Here to back into the familiarity of the Shine On You Crazy Diamond suite, which is kind of like that wind. You've got kind of like that wind blowing, and then you know, back into the whole Shine On You Crazy Diamond. It's just, I love this record. I remember after, you know, I bought Dark Side of the Moon first, and then I got The Wall, and then I bought this, and I remember listening to it thinking like, what the fuck? What is this? Why is it this way? Like, I know this came after Dark Side of the Moon, but what the hell are they doing? But I love this now. It's just a song you can listen to in the dark, and you just have to, I mean, it's so, in times it's melancholy, at times it's, you know, it rocks hard in places, but I just love the different parts and the elements, and, you know, it's kind of one of the last times Pink Floyd collaboratively wrote an album. Animals was very much dominated by Roger Waters and his songwriting. David Gilmour gets one song to sing on there. It just feels like more, you know, kind of a group effort for the last time with Pink Floyd before Roger Waters decided, this is my band, and, you know, I'm going to make all the decisions going forward. But yeah, I love that album. I was like, oh, Dark Side of the Moon, but when I think about it, Wish You Were Here is probably my favorite Floyd album.
Yeah, I really had a hard time picking, because I knew I was going to have a Pink Floyd album. I mean, and if I was being honest, I'd have more than one Pink Floyd album in my top 10, but I just wanted to pick one. And that album really is amazing. And the things that they do on Dark Side of the Moon, the Wish You Were Here album, and The Wall, like how they go from different songs, just the little things that they had in the studio, that is amazing. And the point you made about, you know, that seems to be the last album where it was a real collaboration. I mean, I still think there's some of it on Animals, but yeah, Roger is taking over more. But I don't know if it's fair to just say that Roger was taking over so much as I don't know that the other members were adding as much. But, you know, here you have the song itself, Wish You Were Here. And that's just such a great collaboration between Roger Waters and David Gilmour. Or Shine On You Crazy Diamond, which also, you know, has the great keyboard stuff of Richard Wright on there. So yeah, that's just a fantastic group effort on that album.
Well, I think your point is well taken. I think Roger Waters actually had to pick up the slack from the other. You know, Richard Wright was very much, you know, prolific on Dark Side of the Moon. He was contributing, and then everybody got comfortable because it's like, we made it. Finally, we made the album we were meant to make. I think they got complacent. I think they got a little bit lazy. Roger Waters, I think, was still coming up with fresh ideas. He'd come to the other members of the band and be like, okay, what you got? And they're kind of like, all like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Not much, really. And so Roger Waters is like, you assholes. All right, well, then this is what we're going to do. So I think, a lot of them, it's kind of like Paul McCartney gets a lot of unfair grief for the way he kind of took things over on Let It Be. But, I mean, that's because, John was off with Yoko fucking around, and George was kind of starting to lose interest. Ringo was like, whatever, I'll do whatever you guys want to do. Same with like Pink Floyd. It was like, okay, time to make Animals. And, it's like, what do you guys got? And they're all like, nothing. Christ, again? Okay, well, here's what I've got. And, and I think that after a while, it started to be like, well, if you guys aren't going to come up with anything that we can use, then I guess, these albums are going to look like Roger Waters' solo albums in some respect, because he had the ideas. He still had that drive. He still was like, oh, I have a concept for this album, and this is how I want it to be. So yeah, no, I mean, I'm not, trying to say Roger Waters was an egomaniac and, kind of wrested control over the band from, the rest of them. But it was just like, I think you're right. They just didn't have anything. They weren't as prolific as Roger was. They weren't as creative. David Gilmour had snatches of stuff here and there and maybe a song here or there, but, Roger Waters was always the one coming up with, well, here's the concept, here's the idea, here's the lyrics. And so, yeah, I think, he's kind of unfairly painted as the villain, but I think it was just because the other guys were like, spending their money instead of, trying to write the next album.
Yeah. Yep. I think every band has a leader in it, and a lot of times that person gets painted as the bad guy, but some people they can't lead a band. They're just kind of like, well, whatever, they don't want that response. They'd rather sit back and say, oh yeah, he's an asshole, because he's making us do this and that. But if it was up to them, they'd just be, it's like Ace Frehley couldn't have led Kiss, right? Somebody has to be a leader in a band, and that's just normally the way it works. They don't have to be a dictator, but somebody has to say, all right, guys, come on, let's get going. We got to do something here.
Yeah, agreed. All right, well, I guess we're done. We're out of albums. Geez. All right, well, was this a Pink Floyd video? I can't remember. But yeah, well, thanks everybody. Aaron's going to show the 50 albums that he wasn't able to use into our top 10 list.
It's a great album.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Thanks everybody for watching, if there's anybody left at this point. But next week we'll be back with another compelling episode and another fantastic theme. Good night.